On today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet, we're going to ask the cards how we can take the bull by the horns. And in addition, we're going to talk a little bit about pie. Not the type that we all like, the type that only some of us like. You'll find out more if you listen to today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet. I'm John Paulus. Thanks for joining me. Okay, I wasn't talking about the pie that you order for dessert or that you bake and enjoy. I'm talking about the irrational number represented by pi. What's so irrational about it? Well, it doesn't repeat any of its digits. And I think up to now we have about something like 22 trillion digits, some ridiculous number of digits that computers have been able to spit out. And the only reason I bring it up is because a couple of days ago it was March 14th. And in the United States, the way that we do dates, we put the month first, unlike many other places. And so it's 3/14, as March is 3, the third month, and 14. In places where the first number is the date, I understand that people so inclined to celebrate Pi Day celebrate it on July 22nd July. That's 22 over 7, another approximation of pi in fraction form. And expressed exactly, the only way we could express pi exactly is to say that it is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. And that's a little bit more than 3. How much more than 3? Well, look it up online and you can find out lots of digits of pi. And from what I understand, the reason that it's pi, it wasn't pi. In antiquity, it was p. I mean, it still is p. And because the pi is p and iota. And P and iota are the two letters in the name for the letter pi. And that's together, those are pronounced P. So there's something that you can think about. But in the ancient world, where there were no Arabic numerals yet, the Greeks used letters, as many languages have done over the millennia, to represent numbers when they needed to. So alpha was 1, beta was 2, gamma was 3. You get the point. Originally, pi was 17. Then later on it was 16. That's because one of the letters that was used for a number in ancient Greek dropped out of the counting with these letters, and that was the letter digamma, which as the name tells you, if you know that there's a gamma, digamma means a double gamma, and that's because it looked like 2 gammas. But it was the Phoenician letter wow. That's a great letter. And it was number 6. So that means that pi got moved to 17 in that particular ordering. Although I've seen other ones. So we won't talk about that. But nonetheless, it got turned into 16 when the digamma no longer got used for using numbers for letters later on. And with marks with a mark next to it, to its upper right part, when you put a mark there, it becomes the number 80 in ancient times. So it represented 80. It represented 80,000 as well, with the marks as well, added, just different marks. But nonetheless, the important part is that none of these things is 3.1415, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's because there's somewhere probably in the late 1600s, the first use of pi for representing the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, is in 1706. And it's believed by experts that, and historians of numbers that and of math, that it's because it stood for periphery. So the peri and periphery, that was the p, that was the pi. So that's why they believe that that's why mathematicians started to use it. And I've also read the idea that there's a group of people, math folks, who would like to use tau, which is 2 pi. That would be better, apparently, for a lot of exactness or neatness in equations, to use tau instead of pi. Oh, and let me not forget to mention that that digamma that fell out of the Greek alphabet stuck around in the Latin alphabet as the letter F. And it was it's a gamma with 2 bars instead of 1 going across, and you see how the F has a straight line going up and down and 2 bars going across. That ultimately comes from a digamma, a double gamma, which was the letter wow, and it was pronounced like W, but that but that letter dropped out in Greek at some very early point, and that is why we have words where it was present in languages that were, when they were transliterated into Greek, transliterated the digamma, but then the digamma fell away, and so really old names in Greek where the digamma was are gone. So speaking of languages of the Italian peninsula, the word Italia is filtered through Greek because it was from the Oscan word viteliu, which has to do with calves. So we're getting closer to bulls and bovine discussions, but it means like land of the calf, like calf, calf. CALF. L is a silent letter, I guess, in calf in English, but CALF pronounced calf, silent L. Another wonder of the English language. That became in Greek Vitalia, and then Vitalia became Italia because the digamma dropped out and no one knew it was there. So like the L in calf, it didn't get pronounced, so Italia became the name of the peninsula that we know as, well, Italy today. Okay, so now that we're on bovines, let's ask the cards. Cards, how do we take the bull by the horns and get going? So here we go. Yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles. Cards, tell us somethings. Okay, a card fell out of the deck, so I guess this is going to be our, let me pick it up from the floor. All right, and this is our card for today. If you are in a race against yourself, you can never catch up. It's card number 14. Oh, I was going to hope it was 16 or 17 for the letter P. Too often we think of ourselves as being caught up in the rat race of life, struggling to keep up. We externalize it as a race against other people or other things. But this race is really against ourselves, and we can simply never win it. So say aloud who you are racing for rather than who or what you are racing against. And now, watch yourself cross the finish line. Yeah, well, that's a good way to take the bull by the horns. In fact, even better, think of the rat race as simply a bunch of bull.